I created a marketplace to buy and sell bikes online. It's fully secure backend, fully adaptive frontend, and deployed it on AWS Cloud completely using AI with just 28 prompts and in just 6 hours. Let's see how I did it. And if you want to see all the steps in detail, then do subscribe to our channel because I'll be posting a video there where I'll explain each and every step in detail as well. Now let's start. So I started with the basic setup like installing Homebrew, IntelliJ and MySQL and set up a basic Spring Boot application with a health controller. After this setup was done, I was ready with a basic application with a health controller in place. So for setting the context, I started off with telling ChatGPT what features we are going to build along with the tech stack and basic package structure that we are going to use for this project. After setting the context, I told ChatGPT about the user session management and sign up and login with OTP flows, and it gave me all the controllers, services and other classes required. And after copying and deploying this code locally, I was able to test OTP sign up and login flows using Postman. For testing these features, I asked ChatGPT to share the curl commands for all these APIs, and I copied these curl commands into Postman to test their functionalities, and they were working fine. Next, I asked ChatGPT to give me a simple authentication layer in the form of a filter using Spring Security, which would use the session token generated in the login with OTP flow to authenticate every API request coming from the front end. I copied the filters and security config and tested the APIs with and without the authentication token, and the security layer was working fine. Now it was time for the final implementation in our backend, which was the functionalities related to the bike entity. I asked ChatGPT to make a bike entity and create APIs including the services and the DB related classes for creating bikes. I then asked ChatGPT to share the curl commands for testing the CRUD operations for our newly created bike entity. I copied these curl commands and imported them into Postman and hit the APIs to test the CRUD operations. Once the basic CRUD operations for bike were done and tested, I asked ChatGPT to give me code for supporting search for bikes on the basis of their brand names. I copied the code and tested the search APIs using Postman to see that the search feature is working as expected. Now it was time for us to start working on the front end. For starting up, I told ChatGPT about the framework and tech stack that we are going to use for front-end development. I quickly installed all the development tools that ChatGPT gave me as commands to be executed on command prompt, and my initial web application was ready to be opened in browser with just a simple home page. Then I asked ChatGPT to give me code for homepage, sign-up page and login page along with the API calling that we created for these flows in our backend implementation. After copying over the code into Visual Studio, I was able to open these pages in browser and test the functionalities of sign-up and login. I then asked ChatGPT to give me code for a feed page and a listing page along with a consistent UI design with a header and a left navigation bar. On feed page, I asked for functionality of listing all the bikes along with a search bar where user can search for bikes by brand name. After user hits the search button, a listing page is opened where the matching bikes are listed in cards. After copying over the code, I could load the feed page and it showed all the bikes in cards. I also tested the search feature by searching bike by brand name, and upon clicking the search button, listing page got opened with the matching bike cards. The code that ChatGPT gave me for feed and listing page was fully responsive. I checked this by opening the browser's inspect window and changing the layout to a smaller mobile device screen, and the page adapted to mobile screen where each card was shown in a list vertically. I also tested the like and call owner buttons functionalities, which were working fine as expected. Now for the final phase, all that was required was to deploy my backend and frontend applications. I asked ChatGPT for steps to deploy my applications on AWS Cloud with a vanilla deployment over EC2 machine. As instructed by ChatGPT, I created an EC2 instance from AWS console and added the required security rules which were required to open our application's connectivity from the public network over the internet, and installed basic softwares like Java, MySQL, etc. Then I followed the steps for deploying my backend application on the newly created AWS EC2 instance. ChatGPT gave me commands to copy the jar file and running it using the Java command. For deploying my front-end application on the AWS EC2 instance, ChatGPT gave me commands to install softwares like Nginx, Node, etc. And then it gave me commands to build the front-end application locally and copy the build to the EC2 instance. Then it gave me commands to update Nginx config file to make my front-end applications folder as the default folder to open when a URL is hit on the server. I copied the changes in the Nginx file and restarted Nginx as instructed by ChatGPT. Finally, ChatGPT gave me the URL that I could use to open my AWS Cloud hosted application from browser over the internet, and I was able to successfully open my home page from the browser using the public URL of my EC2 instance.